Welcome to the Launch Family podcast, where we make sense of modern parenting one real conversation at a time. I'm your host, Shelley, a mom of six, former public school teacher, and your trusted friend helping you cut through the noise of today's parenting overload. Today, we're going deep into a topic that often goes unseen, but affects nearly every mom: matrescence. Much like adolescence, matrescence is a hormonal, psychological, and identity transformation that impacts women through every stage of motherhood. Jess Ringgenberg is the founder and CEO of ELIXR, a workforce advisory firm building care-conscious companies through caregiver research, benefit strategy, and leadership development. A former Fortune 500 biotech leader, Jess is the creator of the Science of Motherhood, a national research study redefining how workplaces support parents. She is a recognized voice in the care economy, having spoken at government summits, national conferences, and on dozens of podcasts. Her work is trusted by organizations including Microsoft and Southwest Airlines, and she brings 2 decades of cross-industry solution-based leadership experience and lives in Dallas with her husband and 2 sons. So, Jess, we're so excited to welcome you to the show.
Thanks so much. That was a mouthful. It's always interesting hearing, somebody read your bio. So I appreciate it. Thanks for sharing my story before we even start. Thanks.
Yeah, no, great context. I mean, we're two moms chatting about all of these really important things when it comes to how women and families are supported in the workforce and also at home, and like how does it all kind of blend and mix together? Because those walls aren't necessarily always solid, right? There's a lot of bleed through for a lot of different things. So can you let's go back to like the beginning a little bit on your story. So can you walk us through your transition from biotech executive to founder of ELIXR?
Absolutely. And I just want to say thank you for having me. I love supporting women and founders like yourself, or just thought leaders who are trying to share a story through podcasting and interviews. And I just think it's really, really special that you're doing this. So first of all, thank you. I really appreciate it. Let's see, the pivot and the transition. So climbed the corporate ladder, spent 10 plus years in a space called rare disease, which was just so passion inducing. It was taking first in class medications, meaning no other drug has ever been provided for, 1% of a patient population with a chronic illness. And it really started connecting me to a world where people are navigating invisible hurdles and invisible problems we don't see on the surface. And in the biotech industry, it took patient advocacy, patient awareness, and all these cross functional partners to bring visibility to this very invisible problem. And I loved it. But I also, outside of my career, was also a mother. I became a mom twice throughout my career. I have 11-year-old and almost an 8-year-old now. And I was navigating my own kind of journey of, I set out to do this at 18 after college. Is this really what I want to be doing now in my mid 30s? And I had one of those just identity moments trying to figure out what's next for me. I was most certainly disconnected from this career that I worked very, very hard to get to. And at the peak of it, I felt this tug. I got certified as a professional coach, which was quite transformational for me as an individual and as a mother. Started doing research around, is it just me? Is this all mothers going through it? I found this crazy word, which I know we'll talk about in a little bit, which gave me validation. And so I set out to bring visibility to motherhood in the workplace, just similar to the rare disease industry. And it didn't stop there. And, we're on business iteration number 2, and I have a team of amazing, partners and freelancers and fractional and research team. And we really get to go make this work impactful inside of companies. And by default, really support the working moms and parents we impact day in, day out. So, impact has always been a North Star for me. As long as I'm creating impact somewhere, I definitely feel fulfillment. And it's just fun to see where your career goes, all the twists and turns we take in our life journeys, right?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I think when we have working moms, like moms are probably listening in on this podcast, or parents, like that's our general audience. But um, when we talk about the intersection of work and then also like your identity as a mom, like that's a really big transformational moment. Like I remember when I found out that I was pregnant as a teacher, and I was like, okay, what is this gonna look like? Like it's overnight. Like as soon as you get that positive test, you're like, oh my gosh, my life has changed. So what sparked your identity crisis in that motherhood moment? Like as you had built up this big career, you've invested a lot of time and effort, and then you become a mom. Like what was that moment like for you?
Yeah, I mean, great question. I think, having been in the healthcare, industry and background, you want to look for diagnoses and signs and symptoms so that you can like treat effectively, right? And for new mothers, for postpartum, it's always postpartum depression, PMADs, and this like negative connotation. And so I thought as a new mother, this identity crisis I was going through was postpartum depression, anxiety, and it could have been as a new mom, but it was also just the utter shock. We prepare our whole lives for a career. We go to college, we're told how to interview, you know, how to interview better, how to get promotions, how to network, like all these things. And nobody quite prepares you for parenthood. Nobody says, hey, here's all of the phases you're going to navigate. Here's what to expect. And we prepare for our children what bottles to have, what cribs to get, all the safety. Make sure you cover all the outlets. And I was like, where's the person telling me I'm going to need my own outlet protectors, which is just like, hey, what world am I living in, right? So you come up for air after early motherhood, and I did after my second, carrying probably some significant baggage. And in middle motherhood, it was this another round of identity questioning, which led me to, build ELIXR. And for me, I was frustrated that there was no diagnosis. There was no language around this. There was just kind of mainstream conversations about motherhood and the invisible load, but there wasn't science. And I love data and I love science. So this crisis I had gone through is most certainly something called matrescence. I went digging. I found every journal publication, every research report, every book that had been written. I was this sponge trying to soak up and understand what I was going through. And it's an identity evolution. It's biological, psychological, it's brain remodeling and rewiring. And for me, it led to a business and entrepreneur. Like, I still can't believe that questioning, who you are and what you want in this life can just change your entire career. So that was motherhood. Motherhood was a catalyst for me. And you said it earlier. Parenting and caregiving and career are so intertwined. It's just been invisible inside the workforce for so long. We've said that this is a personal issue and it is a workforce issue. So, um, yeah, I think this self navigation led to a much bigger purpose for me in my life.
Yeah. I want to break down the vocabulary because now I'm intrigued. Like, okay, you're talking about how this is an actual thing, it's based in science. So, what is matrescence and how is it similar or different to maybe like adolescence, which is maybe a term that we've heard before? Of course, we've all experienced that, but break it down for us.
Yep, yep. So over 3,000 women and parents and participants have sat in our, the Science of Caregiving and the Science of Motherhood workshops. And I always start it with this. It's matrescence. So just get it out, say the word. It's so weird to say. And when something feels uncomfortable, we typically won't use it. So let's go ahead and just, for anybody who's listening now, matrescence, just knock it out. Very similar to adolescence. Adolescence is a developmental stage. As a society, we're prepared to support children when they go through it. And in matrescence, it happens in a much shorter period of time in early motherhood, right? Think about you get pregnant, you welcome a child home, and all of a sudden you're attuning to a newborn. We know now, we can see on MRI the brain remodeling and expanding and white matter and gray matter moving. And it's not just your body and it's not just birth and the physiological and biological recovery, it's neurological as well. The term was first coined in the 70s by Dana Raphael, an anthropologist. And, she was like, what about the becoming of a mother? There's this, something happens to the woman too. It's not just a baby. And then fast forward in the early 2000s, Arlie Athan, a Columbia psychologist, expert in the maternal field, matrescence expert like royalty. I fangirl over everything she publishes and puts out. She kind of modernized it and said it's multidimensional, it's never ending, it's existential. It can bring, all of a sudden you can care about climate change. All of a sudden your spirituality changes, your relationships change, your friendships change. So it's so multifaceted. And the beauty And also, the hardship is that it never ends. It starts in those early days of family planning. It also impacts men and women and all the caregivers that are involved in newbornism. And it goes all the way through motherhood, grandmotherhood, and the later stages. And so, for me, because I like data and research, it still wasn't enough because as a working woman and parent, it didn't map me. Like, I want to know, okay, well, what's next? Where am I in matrescence, right? So we launched a national research report last year that said, what does modern motherhood, matrescence, actually look like along the entire caregiver journey? And what does this mean for organizations so they can support those individuals along the way?
Incredible. Oh my goodness. Well, I want to break that down a little bit more too, because I think that now I'm wondering, at least, so I'm sure that our listeners are also curious about the spectrum or evolution of matrescence over time. But maybe we could ground that in a few examples. So in the research that you've done, like, can you share anything about how the brain changes, or like maybe some of those emotional shifts, or like identity evolution in moms? Like, from the positive pregnancy test to, oh my gosh, I'm on my third kid, to, oh, I'm having my first grandbaby. Like, what is happening?
Oof, so
Um,
many things, so many things. Yeah, I mean, what a great place to start. So we really looked at like what does career navigation look like along all of these phases, and matrescence was also missing in modern motherhood. Women become mothers later, and it takes much longer on average. And modern fathers and partners and spouses, they are involved more today with their children than they were before. So what does that look like along the journey? And what we found was that the women who are navigating IVF and IUI, who are in this anticipation phase, parents are really wondering about financial planning and how will this impact my career? And they try to time it out, but they're also navigating loss and miscarriages in the workplace. And so work is so ingrained. Um, you know, 5 out of 10 employees in the US are parents. We were just inside of an organization where we deployed a CareConscious census, and 7 out of 10 of those, or 6 out of 10 of those employees were parents. That's huge, right? So, imagine if just 10% of your workforce is navigating this very silent anticipation. They're looking for benefits to use. They're looking for, how do I have conversations with my manager during a miscarriage? It's really sensitive phase of navigating parenthood. Then you become a mother, or a father, or you're preparing to adopt or surrogacy, or however you become a caregiver in that period of time. You're going through this massive transformation. Okay, you're a parent. You don't wake up one morning and become a parent, right? But the world tells us you do. You grow into it. It's a developmental stage. It's training ground. The science of the brain that I love during this period of time that like makes so much sense to me is your amygdala is firing, that fight or flight. It's because you're on high alert. Hey, make sure baby doesn't roll off of the diaper changing table. Make sure the stroller doesn't roll into the road. And it puts you on high alert. But in your career, when you're reintegrating back at work, you also have like this flood of anxiety that shows up in other places. And you're trying to emotionally regulate and normalize while you're sleep deprived. Your brain is attuning to a newborn, and you're supposed you're expected to show up to work 6-12 weeks postpartum exactly as you were before. And science says on MRI, you will never be that person again. Mother, father, caregiver, you will never be the same again. And what we hear there is identity is a huge hurdle, or being welcomed back, or managers being equipped to support those new parents. So it's an attrition window. It's where we lose parents from the workforce. It's where we lose mothers from the workforce. It's a critical, critical opportunity to support parents better. And then navigation is the longest stage of modern motherhood and matrescence. It's years 3 through 17. We call it navigation. It's, after school pickups, soccer practices, soccer games, bullying at school, their own emotional regulation while emotionally regulating ours. It's where we saw women wanting career reinvention. They felt very stagnant, especially in the toddler years. And we also see it as a huge opportunity to support and integrate parenting and caregiving inside of organizations. And a lot of your people managers are parents and mothers. And then later motherhood, phases 4 and 5, you can see these individuals who are done raising younger children and still have knowledge and leadership skills. Parenthood is a leadership accelerator throughout all those years, and those individuals experience ageism in the workplace. So they're actually like equipped and ready to lean in, and they're not given those ample opportunities. And so how do we like create change? Because that's your mentors, that's your legacy, that's innovation. Those are people that lead those talent pipelines across the finish line. So you can see how like parenthood and caregiving and career are so intertwined, and we just don't really think about it. We think about the invisible load at home, and we don't really think about what it means inside the workplace. And matrescence and motherhood and fatherhood and parenting and caregiving, the sandwich generation, those individuals who are caregiving for aging parents and sick spouses, along with young children, they deserve support. The cost of childcare is, out of this world now. It's a mortgage, but for the first time ever, aging parent and elder care is surpassing childcare as well. So imagine those employees that need to work, have to work, and just want support. So yeah, the research was validating. We got such great feedback. We think about motherhood as like the early days, and it's such a long journey. It spans our whole lives all the way through grandmotherhood, when we can also see neurological rewiring again as well.
My gosh, incredible. I'm so intrigued, and I know that our listeners too, who are, as mentioned, like moms, parents, maybe they've experienced some friction points as they've been returning to work, or maybe they have questions or like, can I go to HR? Do I go to my supervisor? Like, who do I even talk to about this?
Yes.
Oftentimes it's coworkers, and you're like just kind of sharing in maybe the misery together.
Yes.
So what are some ways that companies can better understand and support working mothers across their full journey? As you mentioned too, like that leadership potential as they kind of age out. So tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, you and I were chatting before we got on today, and we're working on a case study with a recent organization we just partnered with, and trying to show all the work we did and why this matters to other companies. And one of the things I really loved is we called it this caregiving conversation index, where people managers want to be equipped to support the people on their team, right? They really do. It's human nature, and there's no standardization, there's no system around how to talk about it, and it's uncomfortable. Like as a manager, typically you're told how to drive, performance goals or traditional leadership training, but never like caregiving conversations or how to navigate leave and the benefits and resources. So it's a lot of information. And we say people will leave bad managers all the time. I'm sure you've heard this before, right? Like people leave bad managers. But people also leave silent managers or managers who don't feel equipped. And so that is one simple way, is really equip your managers to understand the policies across the whole caregiving life cycle. How do they access them? How do they use them? What is a compliant way they can support an employee through that process? And in the caregiver index, we also heard from mid-career and mid-career fathers and mothers who say, I want to talk about career development, but I also want to talk about the reality that I have kids at home. So they don't feel comfortable normalizing caregiving conversations. It's not modeled. They don't see it in their executive team. They don't see it in their third and second line leaders. So you can see this gap, right? It's just a simple conversation enablement. Benefits get better used. Managers have better conversations. Caregivers have better support. I mean, it's a no brainer. And it just starts by bringing caregiving into the conversation. So I think that the biggest shift you can make is equipping those one-on-one conversations and people managers so they can feel confident to the job they have to do every day. They're most of the time they're caregivers too.
I was gonna say, like, everyone feels like maybe they're suffering in silence. Like, okay, we all are experiencing similar things, but then nobody's talking about it. It's not
Yes.
coming up in conversation. It doesn't feel like family centered. And so my next question was more around the lines of like, how caregiving is often invisible within the workforce. And so how does that equate to maybe how it's seen or valued in the workplace?
Great question. I mean, if like I have a strategy background and commercial performance where you're driving for sales and numbers, right? And that impacts the bottom line. It shows growth. You get to, if you're a public company, it matters to the street. For your organization and your leaders, it impacts your bottom line. And so I understand that we have to always equate these types of conversations in this work to why should I care as an organization and as a company. And so we've looked at it from every direction, and there's a cost to inaction. If you do nothing and you keep everything the same as it's always been and say that caregiving doesn't really matter to us, we're going to keep it as the status quo, then you risk attrition and turnover. For your mid-career top performers, it can average around $200,000 in turnover costs. It also, lacks employee branding and talent acquisition. You want the top talent, guess what? They're probably caregivers.
Yeah.
So it really does matter to the outside as you're trying to recruit. And if you want engagement and you want performance, what better way to feel connected and validated at work? Because caregiving is absolutely a part of your workforce and your employees. And companies pay time and time again for all these amazing benefits, right? You know, coaching and therapy, and there's EAP and legal support and mindfulness hubs and all these things. And we've heard across all the organizations we've surveyed is I don't know what's available, how to access it. I don't have time. And there could be like stigma or fear around utilizing them. So the other piece that we do, which is this caregiving benefit roadmap, and we take all the benefits and we map it along the caregiving life cycle. We tell employees and managers what situations you might want to use these things in, very detailed information on how to access them in your life. For example, one employee came off a workshop last month, and he was like, I'm not a parent, but I caregive for an aging parent. He has dementia. He lives at home. And there are legal benefits that were available to this individual to help with will or discount programs. And he only heard that through the chat that was going on the side inside the company, right? So if you don't have awareness, you don't know how to access, you don't utilize them. So the other piece of the puzzle is like you're already investing in all these things. So you might as well optimize and amplify the things that exist already so they can access them. And those are just like simple things. There's so many low cost moves you can do. It just starts by saying, okay, we get it. Our employees are caregivers and parents, and they matter. And we like to say the future of work is care conscious. So you can't pretend like it doesn't matter. And it's not DEI. We hear it all the time. I posted today on LinkedIn. People ask, well, in this political climate, is this very hard for you to do this work? And it must be difficult to talk about family and motherhood and caregiving with all the DI-ish, DIE is what we get told a lot in our conversations. And this is not. This is workforce reality. This is workforce strategy. These are the people you currently employ right now. Probably you yourself as a C-suite stakeholder. So yeah, I mean, it just starts with recognizing that these people exist in your workplace and they're driving you to the finish line every day. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, for families that are listening in and they're like, oh, I'm not working in a place or a climate that has these things, what are some ways that they can maybe navigate the conversation, or who do they talk to? And I guess on the flip side, like, what's the toll of silently continuing to carry that within your organization, cognitively, emotionally, however that could be?
Yeah, I mean, we talk about burnout a lot, right, in the workplace. And burnout isn't just psychological and being overworked. Burnout is also like disengagement or feeling like you don't matter. It comes, or a manager who doesn't make space for you. Like we talked about, there's all these different burnout places. And so I do think there's a burnout cost by expecting everybody to function as normal, or the way that this workforce was built in 1920 in the industrial era. It is not the same place today. So I get it. We speak with so many individuals inside communities I'm a part of, or in our surveys, in our national study, is like, what do I do as an N of one inside my company? And we call them our champions. Be a voice, pick one small little action you can do. Often it's like starting a community, starting a parenting community or a caregiver community inside your company, or networking events, or just simply self-advocating for your own improvements, right? Um, we hear that mothers and fathers mid-career, they want to talk about development to their managers. And we can't change other people, but you can absolutely self-advocate. So what do you need to bring into conversations that aren't being brought to you? And I get it, it's frustrating and it's not fair that you have to always be the one to self-advocate, but nobody's going to do it for you. So be your own champion, be your champion for the caregivers in your company, the champion for your career. Ask your partners for help at home, whatever little small change you can do so you can feel a little weight off your shoulders. All the people we care for can't get the benefit of our support if we don't support ourselves every day, making ourselves a priority.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think too, maybe from personal experience, but sometimes it's really hard to ask a question and be like, hey, I'm really struggling with this, specific thing. For context, I was teaching and my second son was born in May. And by the time that school resumed in September, he was actually had a complex medical diagnosis as a newborn. And so we ended up having to spend like 2 weeks at the local children's hospital, and he had a myriad of therapies. And I will never forget, like, my principal sent me an email and she's like, "Did you get your 2 weeks of lesson plans done?" As I'm sitting in the hospital room. And I was like,
Yeah.
"No." Like, I literally left school after I put kids on the bus, went to get my son, and drove to the children's hospital. Like, when would I have time to go through 2 weeks of lesson plans? And so then that is like a lot of pressure, right, on those individuals of like, okay, well then how do I continue to advocate for myself? Like what is even legal? Like if I'm
Yeah.
technically on FLA, what can be asked of me? All of those questions that kind of come up. And so I would say definitely lean on your community, lean on your peers, lean on your colleagues. Like they're
Yes.
navigating this too. It can feel very overwhelming to be the one person who's speaking up and being like, okay, is there going to be like repercussions if I'm the only one who's speaking up too? So totally understand that. And for listeners listening in, like, know that you're not alone. Like, it is
Yeah.
complicated. This is a long process and journey of trying to rewrite how corporations and businesses can actually value this part of who you are. But again, to Jess's point too, like don't give up. Like we need more
Yeah.
people that are talking about it and that are advocating for it and making it a reality. Cause as soon as it's for one, like, okay, then it's like, okay, what's the next one? How can we 10x that, 100x that, where this becomes more acceptable, like culturally and
Yeah.
societally. So,
I hate that
all
you had to go through that, Jess. Like, I hate it. And as a medical mom myself with two boys with health issues, like, I so get the weight of it. It's like caregiving plus, right? Um, and you said something so important is, you deserve to feel that connection and have your community around you. And if we're not talking about it, then it feels like it's just you. But I guarantee you there's like 100 other mothers in that school district who have navigated something similar. And so my question is like, what would it look like to bring something to the HR business partners of that district and say, hey, we are thinking about a standardized document or guideline to navigate this because it's probably going to happen again. And so I hate that parents have to be the solution, but typically that's the reality. And I think we all know in this, economic climate, teams, especially HR partners and leaders and directors, they're all doing, so much more work with less support. And you kind of have to be that flashlight to that invisible problem until you experience it. And so not to add more to the parents' plate, but if we want change, we have to kind of be the champions for the work. And I will tell you, the champions who have brought us in to do work and then they get to hand it off, it's gratifying because you get to say, my problem, my hardship paved a path for somebody else's smooth sailing. And yes, we're not heroes. We're not superhumans. There's no such thing as super mom or super dad. We're just humans out here trying our best. And we all deserve to know authentically what we're going through because we have ambition. Parenthood doesn't remove ambition. And you're not meant to be the perfect mom and do it all alone. And you're not meant to struggle silently. So find somebody somewhere to support you through it so you feel, a little less alone.
Absolutely. Yeah, relying on that community or just the connections, whether it's even in your workplace or not. I remember navigating the medical challenges and I was like in Facebook groups because I'm like, help me understand. I'm
Yeah.
hearing crazy vocabulary from doctors. I'm trying to like manage what's happening in the classroom or the school while also managing my older son and all of the things. And so, just to kind of, I guess, wrap up with some of that, but what tools or mindset shifts have helped you or your clients kind of navigate that burnout or guilt or identity loss through like matrescence or maybe not feeling seen at work?
Yeah,
Um,
so aside from being the founder and CEO of ELIXR, I'm also the head of coaching for a community called the Society of Working Moms, which is an amazing community. And um, if you don't have community at work, if you don't have community in your neighborhood, there are so many online communities who are ready to welcome you in. There's no better way than carving out time to chat with somebody who gets it. So that's number one. Number two is like I always tell parents and individuals, you've got to redefine success along your career journey, right? Success means something very different 6 months over 6 months or 5 years over 5 years, and most certainly from the beginning of your career. So take some time to be your own career strategist. Use ChatGPT. AI is waiting for you. Tell it who to be. Tell them you got to put a game plan together and what's next for you. Because listen, I get it. Coaching can be astronomical. A lot of the companies we partner with, they can't afford to provide coaching to all their employees. So you get to be your own CEO and coach and kind of map out what's next for you. And it starts by saying, what do I want my life to look like? What does success mean for me right now? So those are two things. And um, I I think social media and LinkedIn and online gives you a lot of shoulds to carry throughout your life, and it can feel like information overload. I love podcasts. I really do. I think they're an easier way to implement without the should feeling. It's like audiobooks, right? So just curate the world of content information you want coming into you every day because you've got a job to do and you've got humans that are relying on you. So shed those shoulds and maybe curate your content a little bit more strict, rigid.
Love that. You said the shoulds. They were
Yeah.
I'm glad. Well, how can our listeners access like your research tools, connect with you? Like, where can we find more information about the work you're doing?
Yes, don't be a stranger. I'm most active on LinkedIn, so come connect with me. I promise it'll be good content. I won't I won't drag you down. Sign up for our newsletter at Elixir, ELIXR, coaching.com. You can download our full research report on the website. We send out monthly newsletters. We talk about the work that we're doing. So just follow along and find us. And like I said, I'd love to meet your listeners and chat about their experience. So no one's a stranger, especially if you're a caregiver.
Amazing. And we'll make sure that we link everything too in the show notes for easy access. But before we go, we usually have a segment from questions from the audience. So from our Launch Family community. So I'd love to get your take on a couple of these. The first question is, I feel like I lost myself after becoming a mom. How do I find me again? So what would you say to the mom in the middle of this kind of identity shift?
Yes. One of my favorite questions. First of all, I said this earlier, there is no bounce back. So if you're looking backwards to find me, you're going to be lost for a really long time. So what I would say is you're in a stage of becoming and self-discovery and figuring out who you are right now. So look forward, ask yourself, what does career mean for you right now? Define parenthood for yourself. Figure out what relationships and connection and friends and family look like, and kind of get curious with who you are right now in this stage. So we hear this all the time, like, I just can't wait to get back into the clothes I wore before. I can't wait to get back to me, before. And it feels very frustrating. You feel like a failure because you're grasping for something that literally does not exist anymore. So instead, look forward, get curious, and figure out, who am I next? Who am I right now? And give yourself some compassion along the way. It's exploration. You don't realize who you are until you go through it. I was very, very extroverted for a lot of my life, and I felt weird after becoming a mother because I wasn't this loud, social butterfly that I had been for my whole life. And, Jess as a mom I was more introvert. I really enjoy my family time. I like an empty calendar now. And so there's this transitional moment into who you were and who you are at every phase that feels sticky and out of alignment. And just give yourself space to figure it out. So that would be my answer for her.
I love that. Like more of like the excitement towards the reinvention. Like, who is this new mom? Who is this new
That
person in life? Like, you have a new child. I mean, I have 6 kids, and I feel like after each one, it's like, "Oh, well, I've never been a mom of 5 before. What is a mom of 5 gonna be like? Who am I gonna be as a
Exactly.
mom of 5 or mom of 6?" And that it does feel overwhelming, though, because you have to shed a little bit of what came before in order to open up for something new and embracing whatever that might look like. Um
Exactly that. You nailed it.
Well, the next question is, my job doesn't understand how much I'm juggling. What do I say? So any advice for moms like that are advocating for themselves at work? Maybe some
Yes,
like
yes, yes.
specific words or phrases or
We hear this a lot in like women's leadership research and just workforce data across like McKinsey and Pew and, Lean In and all of these other sources that self advocating for women is really difficult. 6 out of 10 women won't ask for help, celebrate their promotions, or share, the work that they're doing. So, for what comes up for me when somebody says that is we assume that everybody knows what we're working on and what we're doing. And so, what would that world look like juggling a lot if, with regularity, you brought it to your manager's attention to say, hey, over the last month, here's the 4 projects I did. This is what I've tackled. You're asking me to execute on these 4 things moving forward. Can we prioritize together? Right. So, just
Mhm.
kind of bring them along the journey on what's been accomplished, what you're actually working on day in, day out. They don't know. They are managing up, they're doing 1,000 other things. You assume they know and they do not. So those extra ancillary projects that are good for the business and the company, talk about them, bring them in the conversation. It won't feel like juggling, it'll feel like passing a ball back and forth. And the reality is so many are carrying way more on their plate than they should, and I understand that. But at a bare minimum, make sure that they're brought along the work that you're doing.
Great tip for sure. Any other like lasting thoughts for listeners based on the conversation in our episode today?
Yeah, I mean, I just think there's so much power in what we're doing, right? We're raising the next generation as parents. I'm a sandwich generation. I also caregive up to a parent. And that's a reality. And our priorities shift day in, day out, week to week, month to month. So for me, I really have to speak kindly to myself along the way as a new business owner, small business managing a small fractional team now, working internal with clients. It's lots of new every direction. So the one thing I would say is like whether you're a C-suite leader leading a $1 billion biz or you are a part-time hustler, portfolio career mom, whatever your life looks like now, you get to be your biggest champion and your biggest cheerleader. And that internal dialogue day to day really, really can break you down or build you up. So pay attention to how you're speaking to yourself on the regular.
Yeah. And what better workforce could we create for our children, right? Eventually they're going to be entering, so if we can do some of the work for them, we make it better for them in the long run too. So, Jen,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
yeah. I just want to thank you so much for sharing your incredible insight, research, and heart with us today. Your work is helping put language, the words, to what so many moms have felt but didn't know how to name. And it's inspiring change where it's also desperately needed. So, to our listeners, if you've loved today's episode, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and check the show notes to download Jess's full research report, motherhood guide, and connect with ELIXR and all of the ways to see the work that she's doing. And remember that motherhood, it doesn't have to be invisible and you don't have to go at it alone. We're here with you every step of the way.